Hello, my name's Anisah, and in the UK, Teatime is a customary. So, welcome to my very first tea party. I am joined with my best friend, Starry.
Hello, Anisah. It's my pleasure to join you virtually. Wish you were here.
Today's topic of discussion is perfectionism. It is something that we have both experienced in the past and still do sometimes as artists.
Yes, I find it a typical personality trait of many artists.
So firstly, what is perfectionism?
Alright, so perfectionism to me, the way I would define it is the urge to do everything precisely to what you've imagined or envisioned.
Yes, I think that's a very good definition. I would say pretty much the same thing. I think it's when you have a vision or an idea in your head of how something should be, not settling for anything which doesn't reflect that vision perfectly. It often involves having high standards and being obsessed with details.
Right.
So, do you think that perfectionism is a positive or negative thing?
Well, I will say that perfectionism is both a blessing and a curse. I think that it can be a good thing because perfectionism motivates one to strive for the very best and to push beyond limits. However, the drawback is that perfectionism in itself is an illusion, it's a fallacy. It doesn't really exist. And it is realistically impossible to execute all your ideas. So when I think of perfectionism, I am reminded of a metaphor my grandmother used to say: if you keep sharpening a piece of wood, soon there will be nothing left at all.
I think that's very well said. I agree with what you said about perfectionism being a motivating factor in a way, as well as being a drawback. I've experienced both sides of it, but in the end, the frustration of not being able to achieve my envisioned goal turn into fear of failure. That fear of failure would actually get in the way of productivity, and it would prevent me from getting started on creative activities. And if I did get started, it would prevent me from completing them. When I was younger, that would undermine my confidence and self-esteem, and I'd feel disappointed in myself. So I also think that perfectionism extended into different areas of my life. It meant that I'd get disappointed when something or someone failed to meet my expectations, so I couldn't enjoy things as much as if I'd experienced them with no expectation. You're not born a perfectionist.
Yeah, precisely. I can absolutely relate to what you said, Anisha, because growing up, the biggest struggle with me has always been finding self-confidence. This is the main reason why I would always be terrified of performing in front of other people or even speaking to them, simply. Because in my mind, I would already have this ideal picture of exactly how I wanted things done, how I would sound, how I should look, everything. Realistically, there are many limitations, of course. For instance, I was always self-conscious about the sound of my voice. I never really liked it as a teenager, so I always kept quiet a lot, probably more than I should. Even now, I still don't really like the sound of my voice at times. That's why I am so interested in acting, accents, and singing, because they all allow me to manipulate or transform my natural voice in some way. But if one isn't even satisfied with themselves, how would they be comfortable sharing?
Exactly, yeah. And it gets in the way of enjoying the process of art as well. Because if you're obsessed with trying to be perfect, gets in the way of creative pursuits.
Right, because you're not always going to hit the nail, so to speak, the very first time.
Exactly. So do you think that the perception of perfectionism should be built upon what others think or what they themselves think internally?
Well, with maturity, I think I've come to terms with myself. I think ultimately, the only person in the world you need to impress is yourself, because it is your life you are living. Just as perfection does not exist, it is impossible to make everyone in the world like you, no matter how perfect you think you are. So, in the end, you are your greatest strength. I believe that.
That is very beautiful advice that relates to me as well. The only person that I need to impress is myself. And I want to be satisfied with my achievements and happy with the choices I've made in life. And I think it's also about knowing that you did the best that you can. That feeling of self-appreciation gives you the strength and fuel to move forward in life.
Right, it's like taking ownership of yourself and really embracing yourself for all the positive qualities.
Exactly. Yes, that's exactly. So, how do you think embracing perfection would affect a person's compatibility with society?
Well, as a perfectionist, or I should say a perfectionist by nature, I find that I like to have everything under my control. It's my preference, or for things to be exactly how I imagine it to be. See, the thing is, your imagination is something that is perfect to you. It is also something that is completely under your control. When dealing with the real world, it isn't just about you anymore. There are other factors that also come into play in order to make something a reality. So if you cling to a perfectionist nature, I think you might end up rather disappointed. In order to exist in real society, I think that it is advisable to lower your expectations in order to progress. I think it is unhealthy to always strive for perfectionism, even in the little things in life, because if you do that, you'll become paranoid, and I think that will greatly hinder your potential to accomplish tasks. It's like walking into a brick wall. You can't just will it away, so you will have to find a way to go around or over it.
Exactly. So, following that answer, what advice would you give people who are suffering from perfectionism?
Don't be too hard on yourself. Learn to let things go. If it doesn't work out, I think the most important thing is just reassure yourself that you've tried everything you can do. As long as you gave it your best shot, that's all that matters, really, in my view. The results really aren't that important, I think. It's more about enjoying the process and figuring out what you can learn from your failures.
Yes, I think that's very good advice. I think that you should strive for progress, not perfection. I think I heard that in a quote. But also another person called Rigel DJ Dawson said it's better to finish something even if it's not perfect than to be so obsessed with perfection that you never finish anything. So
Exactly. I mean, I really would like to say, along with my point, you actually probably would grow more if you were to have failed something in the first place, because you learn from your mistakes, you analyze what could be done better, and therefore you gain experience. Wisdom is not something that is inborn. It's all part of progressing.
Exactly, yes. It's the flow of life, isn't it?
Indeed.
I think I saw a book, actually. It was titled Wabi Sabi, and it was, under that was the subheading.
It's a curious title.
It's a Japanese philosophy, I believe. I didn't buy the book, but I thought it was very interesting. It said how the guide of how to live a perfectly imperfect life, or something along those lines. I thought that was very, very interesting, because we do live in a perfectly imperfect world. In a sense, neither perfection nor imperfection exists. You'll never achieve perfection, and you'll never land on imperfection. It's all about how you perceive the situation. It's all about perception. I would say let go of the urge to label things as perfect or imperfect.
Right. Like I said in the beginning, it's an illusion. Everyone has a distinct subjective view of what counts as perfect. There's no common standard.
Exactly, yes, it's purely individualistic. Add to that point, I'd say that resist the urge to label things as perfect and imperfect, and every time you catch yourself doing so, hopefully, by catching yourself out, the habit will dissipate, and over time you'll be able to experience life in the present moment and be able to really enjoy moments as they come. Of course, think back to your early childhood before you had any expectations of the way things should be, and see life through the eyes of a child with no preconceived judgment.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Even if I am an adult, I do foresee myself as a child, because I find that those were the happiest times in my life, and why shouldn't you? Those are pure moments of your life, and it's when you're at your purest as a human being. So I personally, I enjoy living life as a child, and I'm always going to have the heart of a child. And I think, to add along to your point about not labeling things, I think if you're doing that, you'll discover that you'll be a lot freer, and that there's so many things in life that are hidden and simple, and you'll be less judgmental, and therefore happier.
Exactly, yes. And in life, I think it's necessary for things not to go the way we intend, so that we can actually value the times that they do. Because imagine if our projects always came out the way we wanted to in the end we wouldn't value them anymore, and life would be boring and predictable, wouldn't it? That's the way I personally see it. Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah. And it's also it's necessary to focus in order to reach targets, but focus more on the journey and less on the destination. To turn an idea from a thought into reality is a journey.
Yes. It's like an adventure.
Yeah. Exactly,
Adventure,
yeah.
yes. Adventure, you don't know what's ahead of you, but that's what life is. You don't know the future.
The beauty, yeah. If you focus on the goal alone, work out opportunities for better ideas. If you let go of the image in your head and look at the piece of art or whatever you're working on from a fresh perspective, a completely different and better idea might arise. You open up different possibilities of what could be.
Right. Constant innovation.
Exactly. Yeah. The other thing I wanted to say about being a perfectionist as well is, what if something turned out exactly you imagined in your head, but you're still not satisfied with it? You neither enjoyed the process nor were you satisfied with the result. That's why you should remain flexible to other possibilities, because your initial image might not always be the best. So allow space for your idea to evolve and change shape. The desire for perfection stems from the desire to be happy, to live an ideal existence lacking nothing, fully developed and complete. But if we focus too much on perfection, it makes us unhappy. I think life is about balance, and it's okay to have an idea in your head to strive towards, but don't feel disappointed when the project doesn't exactly represent your internal image. And remember what I said in my speech on the coronavirus? Everything is exactly as it should be. The universe does not make mistakes.
Yes, it's fate, in a way. Fate at work.
Yeah. Do you think perfectionism is beneficial in certain positions or circumstances?
Yes, in a way. I think if you are in a good place with reality, like if I was a famous director or a famous author, which are my goals in life, then perhaps I would probably delve into my perfectionist tendencies, because my main goal is to create works of art that communicate the messages I intend to express. I think it would be appropriate under those circumstances. Now, as you mentioned, Anisah, just with everything in life, I believe that balance is essential. So you should not get too hung up over your perfectionist tendencies. Even if you are in a position of power, just give it your best effort and improve if the room is big enough to allow it.
Yes, I think that's a very good way of summing it up, I suppose. Yeah. It's both a good thing and a bad thing, and that's a good example of it. Okay. Basically wraps up our conversation. Thank you so much, Starry, for joining my tea party and for a fascinating discussion.
You're very welcome, Anisah. Thank you for having me on.
Join us for more discussions next time. Teatiming with Anisah and Starry. Stay safe and be well, everyone. Take care.
Take care.